watch this. So I'm back. I'm doing another reaction video, I guess. I kind of like these, so I might do more of these over time. So for those of you guys who don't know, Dave and Shan recently typed Safiya Nygaard. I don't know how her last name goes, but Safiya in the class. And they basically roasted me indirectly, probably not intentionally, but, just given what her type is, I found a lot of things that I could learn from the class. She is officially typed as an audio SITE blast play consume sleep last, right? Which is somewhat of a similar type to me, right? She's in the same quadra, she has the same modalities, she's also sleep last. And there were several comments that Dave and Shan made during the at least the first part of the class that hit a little bit too close to home a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and play a few clips for you. I'm not gonna play the whole Q&A or the whole class. Feel free to, go yourself and watch that. But I'm going to play a few sections that I found very valuable and meaningful for me, and just talk through how this kind of resonates with me, with my type, and, where the differences are. Because, again, she's lead SI and I'm lead NE, so there's going to be a little bit of a difference there. So what I'm going to do here is, in classic OE fashion, I'm gonna put it at 1.25x speed and put it on full screen for you guys. All right. It might start in a weird place as well, but all right. Oh, wait, what the hell?
It is the start of day one of driving across the country. So today our chauffeur is Mr. Tyler Lee Williams. Hello, Tyler. Nice sunglasses. Keep your eyes on the road. Keep driving. Now we've broken up our 3,000-mile journey into 6 days, and we're going to be driving about 7 to 8 hours each day. And our destination today is Williams, Arizona. We're going to be driving from our old house in LA to Williams, AZ, which is a little bit outside of the Grand Canyon because tomorrow we want to peep the Grand Canyon before driving on to our next destination. Now here we are introduced to our friend, the Highway US 40, and the 40 is going to be our main mode of cross-country travel for almost our whole trip. So know it, love it, breathe it, live it. The 40. All right, so let me stop here. Hold on. So so Dave and Shannon are about to roast her for her SI, right? But the thing that's really interesting to me is just how fast she's talking. Now, again, I put this on 1.25x speed, which might be a mistake to some degree because I think David Chen also have her at 1.25x, so I might have sped it a little bit too fast. But even with that being the case, usually when I'm making videos like this, I tend to notice that even like if I speed up the video, it's still okay, right? It's still an okay pace. But for her, even for me, it sounds very, very fast, which indicates to me that even when she's talking regular speed, she's probably speaking more than normal. And the reason I'm pointing this out is because Dave and Shan often talk about sleep lasts not catching a breath, right? They talk, either extremely fast or they just talk nonstop. And, it can kind of overwhelm the person listening because it's just too much at once and it's too fast. So that's kind of the first thing I wanted to point out. I know Dave and Shannon are about to roast her for something else, but I did want to kind of, I guess, roast her for how fast she's talking as well. So I just wanted to point that out. The moon is rising. What's up, moon? What's up? What's good, moon and train? So once it gets dark, I'm not really going to be able to film much, but I will check in when we hit Arizona. Dude, this is legit. You're a real adventurer, man.
It's Ed from Mass Recovery.
Right,
okay, wait. Okay, so going back to that. So Dave, I'm surprised Dave and Shan missed this, right? So again, we have to remember she's officially typed as an ISTJ. She's an IJ, right? So her lead human need is control, organizing, narrowing down, everything related to that, familiarity, things like that. But what's interesting, and I don't know if I can catch the exact caption for you here. Oh, wait, here it is. Nope, that wasn't it. But basically, she says at the very, very tail end of the clip that, oh, yeah, like, I feel like such an adventurer. I'm so spontaneous, like, at the end of that clip. And I'm surprised David Chen didn't point that out because that is a prime example of what we call peacocking, right, in the OP system. Peacocking basically meaning that you basically start bragging or you start claiming that you're really good at your demons, right, when you're probably not. I personally am okay with peacocking, me personally, because it still is a sign that you're doing it. It's still a sign of growth, but it's kind of it can get kind of annoying, let's say, if someone overdoes it because everyone else can see how bad they are at it, but they might think that they're extremely good at it, so that mismatch might get a little bit annoying. So I am surprised that David Chan didn't call her out for calling herself such an adventurer when she's stressing out about moving cross country, which they'll drag her for later. But that's something I did want to point out before they continued the roasting session. So I just wanted to point that out. So let me go back to David Chan here.
That's recovery.
Right, that.
Okay, Ed, give us the weather report. The sun is in the sky. The sun is a fireball of hotness. It is 93 degrees.
No, please let's not say anything that intuitive.
Again,
No.
I can't even say it. It's so boring.
It is. Here's the literal.
The wind is 33 degrees. The temperature is 93.
Yes.
I want to say something funny, but I'm not allowed to because I'm just saying the facts. And like it's a running gag. They're like, all right, Ed, tell us the obvious.
Right, really good. And I love how she says it, but when you are listening to Safiya, it's 1,000% a ST report. And it's very linear. Like that, one of the things that
That's all you're looking for.
I'm consistently looking for when I hear ST or when I hear somebody reporting sensory. I'm like, okay, are you scattering as you're talking, as you communicate? And it's a cadence. It's a whole song. It's you can hear the sound of somebody giving I'm throwing shit at the wall and I don't really know what I'm going to say next. The beautiful thing and fascinating thing about SI to me, because it's such a different sound, is it has it's choppy.
Wow, that is what's going on in Lead SI's mind. Like, what's the word I'm going to use?
Right.
Okay, let's stop. All right. So Dave's going to continue on, but they basically made their point. So, just giving feedback on that. So, it's extremely interesting that they pointed out how SI talks or how SI frames things in their mind, right? Again, just to recap it, they're saying SI is they called it almost choppy language, right? Where they're choosing the precise word to mean an exact thing, and they're telling a story in a very linear format, right? And they contrasted it with SE, which is it's also sensory, right? But they called it more of scatter talk, right? They're kind of just throwing random sensory out there. Now, for me, there's a few things that I took away from that. One is I'm Demon SI, I'm SI last, right? So it's like, okay, maybe that's something I need to learn from. Is maybe I do need to be a little bit more of a reporter and be this kind of almost boring, spelling things out for people. Me as Savior NE, I personally get very irritated when I have to do that, when I have to spell something out because it feels so childish, or it almost feels condescending. It's like because like they said, SI is spelling it out to the point where it makes, at least for me, it makes it seem like the other person's completely dumb, because it's like, why do I have to spell out that it's 83 degrees and the sun is in the sky? Why do I have to tell you that the sun's in the sky, right? That's kind of my feeling as an NE. But kind of the first takeaway is like, okay, well, maybe people are that dumb. Maybe people need to be reminded that the sun is in the sky. That was kind of what I was thinking. I was like, okay, maybe I need to be a little bit more maybe I shouldn't assume to know what other people know, was kind of the point. The second thing that I wanted to point out is, so they're talking from their point of view. Dave and Shane are on the, what is it called? Gamma quadra, right? So they have the SENI axis and they have the FITE axis, so they're talking from that perspective, right? And they have their biases, of course. What's interesting is, for me, I'm on the Delta quadrant just like Safiya. People who talk like the SE scatter talk also annoy the hell out of me. I don't know if that's been commented on enough. It's so annoying. Like I think I brought it up in one of my my last video on SF Sleep, if you want to check that out. SF Sleep at work. And one thing that annoys me personally is if I'm talking to someone about what I'm doing in my personal time, right, in the sensory, they then call me out and they're like, hey, well, why not do this and why not do that? And they give me all their random sensory options. And I'm like, I didn't ask you. Like, that's kind of the feeling. It's like, I did not ask you for your opinion on what's the best clothing around, or what's the best, like, unless I ask you, don't tell me, is kind of the feeling. And I guess the takeaway is, for me, I'm Savior NE, I'm lead NE, there's probably an equal frustration with the NI people have towards me, which I can understand, right? It's like, if I'm trying to tell them my random observations, they probably are getting just as irritated with me as I'm getting with the SE people, right? Because the NI is like, look, I have my pattern and I didn't ask you for your commentary, right? Which probably also explains why Dave and Shan don't answer my emails. I mean, they do sometimes, but when I'm giving them suggestions, they don't answer. So that probably explains that. So I just want to make that commentary. I think they're doing a great job roasting her. So let's continue. Lose my voice here. All right. So Dave's gonna continue on his blaster lesson here.
Here I'm slowing down and saying every single word. They don't talk like all the weirdos do, where they're just smearing words.
Really good. Okay, so before we go on, Just so you know, every single IJ, when they have to move, it is a big fucking drama.
It's the crab leaving the shell, finding the Pepsi can, and then finding another shell.
And this is what Lita and I looks like. So, how did she emotionally process the move? Let's see.
A lot happening. It's all happening very fast, and I have a lot of feelings. No, I do not go here. New chapter, people. It's all happening. We don't have any furniture, and I still have a lot of feelings. And no, I still do not go here. But I do live here. So there's that.
The feelings, don't go to the feelings.
We do.
Okay, so real quick, before they talk about FI, or Demon FI, one thing that I noticed, so I didn't do any formal typing this week. You know, I need to build some habits in that area, so it's going to take a little while. But one thing that I noticed during that little excerpt of her, she reminded me a lot of Marie Forleo, actually. And Marie Forleo is a somewhat different type. So Marie Forleo is and she's a double feminine, NITE blast sleep play consume, or I forgot, but like she's lead blast. And I was honestly wondering, is that cadence, like the way that she talks, is that blaster talk? Is that the blaster cadence? This is a speculation on my part. I have no proof, right? This is a guess. But I just that they talk the same. And I was like, okay, well, why would a blaster want to sound that way, let's say? I don't have any feedback, but like I guess I just wanted to point that out. If you guys have any suggestions as to why, feel free to leave it in the comments. But that is something that is bugging me. Is like she reminds me a lot of Marie Forleo in that section. And I think especially because they're gonna talk about the Demon FI, which I'll talk about as well. But it felt very performative the way she was talking. She's like, "Oh yes, I moved from here to here, and yes, I had feelings, but I don't want to share that with you because that's not part of my performance." That's kind of the vibe I got. But again, this is speculation. I just wanted to point that out. Just that she just reminds me of Marie Forleo a lot in that clip. So let's go to FI. This is a very important point that they're about to make.
Do not go here.
Well,
She said it quite a few times. I just grabbed the front and the back of that
Yeah.
particular video, and I was like, wow, that's funny. She does say this thing a lot where I'm having feelings, and no, we do not go there. Ever.
Yeah, we definitely see that, especially the double deciders that are saber T.
Right.
They'll just tell you in a non-neurotic way, like, "Oh, I don't do my feelings." There, we're done now.
What is so fascinating to me is that you think, and I know I am super guilty of it, you think you get away with that.
I know. So
Like, you think that they can just go in some, like, just go to hell and
I know,
never come
I
back.
know.
Go in that lava
it's like,
pit.
it's like
Stay there.
the feelers like used to think, oh, the thinkers are smarter, but then you realize you fucking idiots. You're so fucking stupid. Like you can't do that with feelings. They're gonna come back at the worst time in the worst way.
Right.
Duh.
I know, we are so dumb because we don't manage feelings. Okay.
Okay. Really good point. So this clip that they just showed, the next clip and the following clip where they're talking about sleep last, I was completely red. Look at my face. They read me, okay? This is where I felt personally attacked, okay? I was like, why are you calling me out like this, okay? So let's start with the first one that they just talked about with the FI, right? So that's absolutely true, right? And I've done that for most of my life. I remember, so for example, for me growing up, like truly, like from ages 5 to 12, I lived with several guardians, but one of my closest ones was my aunt, right? My biological aunt. And one thing she would tell me, like almost weekly, as I was growing up, is Reggie, you can't be bottling your feelings in. Like you got to let it out sometimes. It's okay to have feelings, right? And I think apparently it's because she just saw me just bottling stuff up and not wanting to deal with feelings. And then I would, like they said, I would just blow up and be irritated and be mad and I'd be rude and then I would get a spanking because that's how we dealt with that back then. But it was this radical up and down, and even to this day, right? I'm 26 right now. And I still have that problem, right? It's like I still have a problem like sharing emotions. I either overdo it with some people that I'm close to, or I don't do it at all. And I've even gotten comments from people that were like, "Yeah, Reggie, like you seem so mean. Like why aren't you ever happy?" and all this stuff, right? Like people, like at work, people in my life, like it's a very consistent trend. And I guess just to respond to that, right? Like why would a savior thinker do that? It's not, well, I'll speak for myself because I'm a double decider, I guess, so it might be a little bit different than a lead thinker. For me, it's not that I don't know that I have feelings, right? It's like I completely am aware that I'm mad and that I'm upset. There's just this feeling, at least for me, that now is not the time for that feeling, right? Literally, it's like I'm at, like, so for example, let's say I'm at work, right? And I'm irritated or I'm frustrated at some person, from the OP community or whatever, I don't know, right? The obligation that I have is like, look, Reggie, like that's an issue, right? I acknowledge that that's an issue, but now is just not the time to deal with that. You got to get this done, and then later you can go worry about the feeling. But the problem with that is, of course, that there never is a right time to deal with your feelings, basically, right? There's never a right time to deal with your feelings, and there's never a right time to deal with your sleep either. Like, and that's me doing a little shortcut. But basically, it's like, yeah, it's like that is the stupidity of, I would say, safer thinking. I guess all I would want to respond to Dave and Shannon is, it's not that we don't know we have feelings, and it's not like we don't know we have to deal with them. It's just that we never allocate time to deal with them because we're so busy doing stuff, right? That's how I would relate to that. So, but they're completely right, right? They still completely read me. It's gonna get worse from here. So these last two clips are gonna be pretty funny.
So, for Safiya's best and worst habits, or best trait, worst habit, I said, Saf is always down to chat, and she's always on is her sort of like her bad traits. She's like always,
that's a good one, actually.
thinking about things we got to work on. Saf doesn't like
Yeah,
that,
I
like,
don't turn off my work brain very
So
well.
okay, so like, do you find yourself kind of just staring off sometimes, or staring down? And
More like Tyler's like literally taking a bath. I'll be like, all right, we need to add this to our task list. Like, let's do this. He's like, I'm literally in the bath. I cannot do that.
yeah, I'm a bath guy. So,
Tyler's a bath
you're
bro.
always down for chat.
Yeah.
so Saf, yeah, like that is.
I like that you wrote a 2, like as a number.
It's so lame. That was my thought. It wasn't like a down to chat. It wasn't a too fast, too furious thing.
I saw that.
It reminds me of like an AI like sort of byline. Always down to chat.
Yeah, there's something very like nuts about it. Yeah.
I love when people give a view into their lives. Like the guy's in the bathtub and she's going, "We need to go do this thing."
Yeah.
Like that's what it looks like if
Right.
you are information
Sleep
dominant and
less. There
sleep
you go.
less. Like I'm
Yeah.
trying to like, how do you separate that out?
And it makes a lot more sense. You're seeing Phil DeFranco, like, sleep last Phil DeFranco, like, okay, because I'm sleep last and I won't do my sleep energy, so let's talk this all out. So what do we do? What do you do? What do we do? Anything to avoid sleep energy, so let's just, we got all day. I mean, we got all day. Let's just do all day. We can go all day. Go, 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 go.
Right.
All right, okay. This is where I felt personally attacked the most, right? These two clips, because I don't know if you guys know this, I'm the exact same type as Phil DeFranco. Exact same, right? So audio, NETE, play, consume, blast, exactly the same. And I was like, ugh. It's like, I didn't, at first I was, unsurprisingly, of course I was offended the first time I watched this, right? Because of course DE is offended all the time. I was like, no, I'm not like that. But I watched it a few more times. I'm like, yeah, I do that. And again, this is probably why they don't respond to my emails, like, because all of my emails tend to be, I tend to. So this is just an insight into my life, I guess. It's like, for me, I'm like, okay, well, I want to maintain somewhat of a consistent interaction with them. Like, that's what I would want. But like, I would just send them a bunch of random stuff and a bunch of random questions that had nothing to do with them really, which I didn't really think about. And like, it would be very much that, hey, we should do this, or hey, what can I do here? Well, hey, this. And of course, I mean, based on how they're responding, especially as energy doms, I would imagine that makes it worse. Is like, they're like, don't, like, that would just irritate them. But I think also what that's saying is that I didn't realize just how much I felt obligated to do stuff, let's say, right? So these two Phil DeFranco clips and Dave's commentary in particular are very, very, I'm like, ah, shit, like this is pretty bad. One thing I wanted to mention though about Safiya's comment there, right? Or about that dynamic, right? So again, like that scenario where her husband's in the bath, taking a bath, and she's randomly, I don't know if she's knocking on the door, I don't know how she's getting a hold of him, but she's like, hey, we need to do all these things. So Dave is going to mention it in the second clip here, but it's going to be, there's this fear. I think let me rephrase that. Where that feeling of we need to do more is coming from fear, right? I don't know if you guys have watched some of the older YouTube definitions or clips about OP, but there's one section where they define the observer functions or the observers as very fear-based and the decider functions as very pain-based, right? So what I'm seeing here is she's an observer and she's also sleep last, right? So it's like she's doubling down on observations to save her in a sense. So that anxiety to do more, I think it's ultimately coming from a fearful place, right? It's like, oh shit, like if I don't do this, my observations about the world will fall apart, right? It's kind of the feeling. I know it's very NFNT language, but like just use that as an example. It's like she's just stressed as crazy. She's like, I got to do these things, right? And I definitely relate to that as well. And it even got to the point where, people at work, like, they call me a hard worker, even though I subjectively don't feel that way. But then like the issue is that this is where burnout comes from. This is where, self-loathing comes from. This is where poor performance ultimately comes from, because you're so scared to do everything at once. So let me just do one last clip, and then I gotta really, actually, yeah, I gotta go after this. So
So wait, so what did you think?
Okay, I would like to hear what Tyler has to say.
That is awful.
I couldn't think of anything.
These are good ones, man.
I couldn't think of anything that I do.
These are good ones.
Those were good
Yeah, no,
ones.
you gotta try it.
I couldn't like look at myself like from an outside perspective. I was just like I couldn't do it. I couldn't achieve self awareness.
Do you find yourself not ever thinking about looking at
Evaluating myself?
No, that's
Yeah,
pretty fair.
no, not that much.
You just it's about the output.
Yeah,
Like, what
it's
am I
about the
throwing?
product.
Yeah. No, I think that is
It's not good, but I think that's how I'm living my life right now.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. I'm not here to
I
judge
would
you.
prefer to be otherwise, but
Yeah. No, yeah, I think it's when you're like such a grind. You kind of lose. You almost like lose the inner monologue a little bit.
yes.
You know, I noticed that.
Not even just inner monologue, but also like the how not the how am I doing, but like the like how am I doing in like approaching things and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like how can I improve as a being? You
Yeah.
know, it's more like how can I get this done? You know
What a
what I'm saying?
fascinating observation of the sleep last. I'm definitely understanding it more. Tell me what you're seeing there.
Okay, so yes, I'm definitely saying to the other sleep last, so you lose self-awareness because you're just outputting, and it's fascinating because he's like basically projecting what he goes through. So
Right.
he's like trying to process her not seeing herself, and it's actually extremely self-aware that Safiya can see that, right? So her husband, that's who the guy is, by the way. That her husband is saying, yeah, she's not aware of self because she's going. Like they're putting it together very, very well. And then what the husband says, which I thought was very interesting wording, he's like, you kind of lose the inner monologue a lot. So for him, if his inner monologue would be TI, that you would lose that, right?
Right.
And she pauses and she's like, wait, no, I lose. And then she goes on to describe what I was kind of seeing as like the evaluating, the FI.
It is Tyler's best trait.
all right, we're done. So last comment, and then I do definitely gotta go. I ordered food. Oh wait, he's dropping it off. So I guess there's a reward for letting the tribe do stuff for you. Okay, cool. So one last comment about that, right, is that's also my fault. So one comment about that is so there's two comments. So the first thing is Dave pointing out that, like I said before, Safiya is terrified. No, Safiya and Phil are terrified of the sleep energy. And one thing that he pointed out about Phil, which is again my type twin, which is why I'm paying more attention to him, is Phil is projecting his issues onto Safiya, which happened to be somewhat good, right? Because she's also sleep last, so he's getting accurate feedback. But that projection, he's projecting his problems onto them so that he can keep talking as opposed to, dealing with it on his own. I 100% relate to that, right? There's, I got in trouble basically in the OP community, the past 2 years because I would like stay in VCs for like hours, Discord VCs. I would be posting like crazy in the Facebook groups, and all of it was, as Dave mentioned, is like this avoiding of the sleep energy, this fear. I mean, as well as the fear, but I think for the sleep energy, this is how I would describe it. Like just like with regular sleep, right? Like when you literally go to sleep for 7 to 9 hours, you have very little time for the rest of the day, right? So you feel rushed. And so for me, I think the same thing happens with like sleep energy or sleep processing is my fear is if I take time out of my day to go over stuff that I already know, in my mind, I wasted a bunch of time and I have less time to do all the things, right? Because the play is addicted to doing stuff and, helping the tribe and all this stuff, right? So that's kind of where the fear comes from. And I think that is part of why Phil is trying to talk it out as opposed to going in a little corner and just dealing with it, right? And so I think the other thing that he mentioned or Dave mentioned that is pretty important and Shan, is the self-awareness of Safiya, which I also think is pretty admirable, but is something that I guess surprised me that is something that I need to learn, right? Which is Safiya saying, I don't know how to see myself from an external point of view. I don't know how to see what I'm doing wrong. And I don't know how to evaluate, in her words, how to become better as a human being, right? And so for me, I was thinking that was more consume, and maybe there's an overlap because again, she's demon consume and demon sleep. So I think consume is more about seeing yourself from an outside point of view. I think I'm okay at seeing myself from an outside point of view, right? But I think where the sleep comes in is more so that evaluation process, right? Where it's like, let me take time aside and actually decide how I will improve as a human being. That is more directional, that's more focused, that's not a random observation about the self, which is kind of more of the external view that I thought she was talking about. Sleep is more about direction. It's like, where am I going from here, right? And as well as evaluating how am I doing as I'm getting over there, right? So that's about it. I gotta go, but hope you guys enjoyed this. like while I'm in the dark. I gotta get this food. But otherwise, hope you guys are doing well, and I will see you guys in the next video that I make.